Hey everyone, it's Dacian Miller, and we're here with another Whiteboard Wednesday. And hope everybody's been doing well, right? So today we're going to switch gears and get away from unarmed stuff and all that. But of course, all this stuff is linked, right? We can see our techniques, our different training areas, different categories, and all that kind of stuff, right? All the principles and concepts as being like, I don't know, jigsaw puzzle pieces or gears, right? Where the teeth have to go together just right, right? So everything is tied in with everything else, right? So if we can understand that things work this way, right, then we get a better sense of things, right? And we're heading in the right direction. Often what ends up happening is people tend to see their training, their techniques, the different lineages, if they're training in different styles, all those kind of things, right? And they tend to train with them as though they're in a vacuum, right? And what that means is that, you know, what I do over here is what I do over here, and what I do over here is what I do over here, but they're not related, other than, like, you know, they're all part of ninjutsu or budo taijutsu or whatever. It just ain't so, right? It's not true. Okay, so everything goes together. So if we can make the connections, it's all good. I'm going to make a reference to that today between the weapon or the stuff that we're talking about, right, and another more traditional classical weapon that tends to suck people in, right? Okay, so we'll see if this one gets a whole bunch of extra views because I'm talking about weapons, right? Okay, so if you followed along with things, if you know what we're talking about today, what we're talking about is handgun defense, right? From two different directions, right? I'm going to cover an outline or a framework that I use to teach my students, and we're going to look at four very critical areas if we're going to actually, you know, get a handle on this stuff, right? But before we get into that, we're going to take a look at the psychology, right? The psychology of handgun defense, right? And to do this, we have to look at a bunch of different places, a bunch of different areas, right? So we have to look at our psychology, right? What's going on in our head, right? The different mental things that we need to have a handle on. If you're coming in for this year's spring ninja camp, right, in May 13th, 14th, and 15th, right? I know, shameless plug, right? But if you're coming in for that, the theme this year is getting your head on straight, right? My grandfather used to say that, boy, get your head on straight, right? But what we're going to be looking at are these mental aspects, okay? So for the technicians, right, lots of techniques, weapons training, all that kind of stuff, but we're really going to be honing in on different aspects of training the mind, developing certain aspects, making sure that our awareness and focus and concentration is where it needs to be at different places, right? In a defensive engagement, that kind of thing, right? All right. But psychology, all right? So psychology, getting your head on straight, right? This is where I lose a lot of folks because they just, you know, psychology stops at memorizing the step-by-step pieces or memorizing the names of kamae, postures, the names of fist, and all these cool Japanese names for things, or if you're in a Chinese martial art or a Korean martial art, right? Knowing the foreign language names for these things, right? It tends to be where it stops, right? But okay, there's a bunch of different ways to go with this, right? So before I jump into all this stuff about gun, right, it's going to be really, really important that I remind everyone about three basic words that we use in English, right? Three words, and what we're talking about, because they're not the same thing, okay? And those three words are techniques, okay, tactics, and strategies. Okay, techniques, tactics, and strategies. All right. So, and sometimes, I mean, if you look at a thesaurus, right, it's one of these books that looks like a dictionary, but it gives words that mean the same thing and all that, right? You can end up finding these things all in the same place, or at the very least, two of these things, you know, in the same journal entry or whatever, right? Okay. But to be really, really clear on these, okay, techniques are what we do with our body to their body, okay? So sum it up, right? These are the moves, right? What people call them, I'm going to put that in quotes, right? Right? The moves, right? These are my moves, okay? Whatever, okay? So Musha Dori, Onikudaki, Ganseki Nage, Ichimochi no Kata, whatever, right? Techniques, Okay. I'm going to jump all the way down here to strategies, right? Strategies are outcomes, right? What is it that I'm trying to produce? Now, a strategy could be, in a very broad sense, and this is what I look for my guys that are getting their second-degree black belt, right? The strategy could be go home safely, right? Okay. So doesn't matter what techniques I used, doesn't matter how I did it. What matters is that I survived this bad situation. Get the hell out of there, right? I get to go home safe, right? Least amount of wear and tear on me, whatever, right? That's an overall primary first level strategy for in ninjutsu, right? It's not about how we win, it's that we won, right? So could be, right? It's a basic thing, right? But for my guys that are in security, military, law enforcement, that kind of thing, right? Have similar background, right? Or maybe it's you and somebody came into your house, right? Okay. So a strategy could be, I need this guy on the ground in a restrained position, face down, right? So I can get cuffs on him, so I can hold him down with my knee till the cops get there, whatever it is, right? Okay. But I need this person in a very specific place. We have a system in my dojo for what we call Dojo Invaders. Okay. What that means is it's some jackwagon out on the street who decides he's going to come in and challenge somebody, right? The instructor, whatever, right? He's going to come in and cause a whole bunch of problems, right? How do we get him out of here? Okay. And we have, different things that we're going to do based on where we are in the academy or how bad the situation is, right? But let's just say that my strategy is to de-escalate this person and get them back out the door they came in, okay? So I don't know if you noticed or not, but behind me, right, here's one of many weapon racks that we have here in the dojo, right? We've got one in another classroom that's right behind me, right? A whole bunch of weapons racks, right? So one of those strategies could be to keep them away from those things while allowing me to position myself closer. But either way, the end game is to get this guy back out of here, right? So this is the end result. This is where I want the technique to go. Again, it could be as vague for fairly new people, right? First, second degree black belt. I don't care how I win. I don't care which techniques. I need to go home, right? But on the higher end, I may need him in a very specific position, right? So what this does, right? So strategies, right? This is our agenda, right? This is our plan, right? This is the outcome we're looking for, right? Vague, just want to win, man, right? Or I need this guy in cuffs in the back of my patrol car, or whatever. I need him on the ground in a restrained position, my knee on his back until the cops or the po-po with the gun show up, right? Okay. So this is going to determine which techniques I'm going to use and apply, which directions all that kind of stuff, right? It's going to determine what I use because I need him in certain places, right? So if I want somebody face down on the ground, an arm bar or something from behind him that directs him forward, opens him up, and causes him to come in with that 1-point landing, right? Like a plane coming in with no landing gear, right? Okay. That's going to be my best options, right? So the whole idea is that everything I do should lead him in the direction, right? If it's a Dojo Invader, toward the door. If it's, again, somebody's in my house, whatever, right? Okay. I need to move him in that direction. Anything that I do that moves him away from that direction makes my job harder, makes the engagement last longer, and puts me and everybody else at greater risk. Okay. So what about tactics, right? Aren't tactics strategies, right? I mean, tactic is like, or isn't it tactics are same as techniques? No. Tactics, right, are, we're going to call these advantages, right? I'm going to come back to this word here shortly, right? Okay. So tactics are things that I do to make the application of my techniques easier and serves to set things up so that what I need for the techniques, I'm going to apply, right, to create that agenda, it's going to make that whole process easier. All right. So I'll give you an example, right? Most of the times when the people train, right, they square off, right? So he's straight across from me, right? So I'm standing here looking at my own reflection on my screen in the camera, right? But if I were looking at you, we've got one shoulder lined up with the other shoulder. We've got one shoulder lined up, that kind of thing, right? When people call it nose to nose, man, we're like nose to nose, right? And we're right there, right? And a lot of people train this way, right? We're always this way. Right now, you're not going to be able to see this because I can't freeze my frame or my screen there, right? But if I move that much and he doesn't, now this shoulder is lined up with him to that shoulder, right? It's actually, they're lined up shoulder to shoulder, straight across, right? Which means that his guns are now not lined up with my center. His guns are now over here and have to come in at an angle, right? Everything changes, okay? So if I need to apply that arm bar, then it's in my best interest to not just move in a certain direction, but to set things up so there's more space on that side so it's easier to move over there, okay? See the psychology coming in, okay? I need to be a thinker, right? In the advanced stages, you need to be able to assess a situation and know more about your techniques than just your damn moves, okay? What the hell does this have to do with handgun defense, Sensei? Okay, good question. Excellent question, right? So let's get rid of this stuff, right? Yeah, but I wasn't finished writing. There's a thing called a rewind when you get to the recording, right? It is amazing to me, right? And I'm going to piss off a bunch of people. Not that I don't do that on a regular basis. It is amazing to me how many people want to be involved or want to be masters of or black belts in or whatever. This thing called ninjutsu, which by its very nature makes somebody a problem solver. Okay? Think about it, right? Lone operative, deep in enemy territory, doing whatever, okay? Or somebody that just read the texts, right? Able to work your will without action. It's not that you're not doing anything, it's that nobody knows that you're doing anything, right? Requires a deep level of understanding in tactical application of things, strategic thinking, all those, right? But they have a ton of problems. Yeah, but the problem is, right? This is something I'm going through with the group of, what do I have, 10, 11 instructor candidates, right? We call them ICs, that are going through an advanced or an accelerated instructor training program right now at the dojo, because not just exploding the dojo, but I have plans of having a whole bunch of others. Some of you guys know this, right? But one of the topics that came up in their training was the difference between being a problem-oriented person, right? Yeah, see, problem is, right? So what, right? And being a solution-oriented problem. Oh, that's a problem. How do we fix that, right? See, Sensei, I'd like to do that. I'd like to go to your seminars and all that, but I can't get time off work. Why not? Well, my boss, did you ask? Did you frame it in a way that made it an advantage for them to want to help you do the thing you're doing? I don't know how to do that. Oh, okay. Would you like to learn? Right? That kind of thing, right? Or I don't have enough money. What are you doing to make more money? Well, you see, I can't help you, right? If everything I'm going to offer is a solution, you're going to shut down because of a problem, I can't help you. And if that's your mindset, probably best to just push the button on I can't do ninjutsu and go do something that fits the problem thing. Well, see, the problem is I'm just a weak victim, and so I can't do anything for myself. Well, then fucking die when the bad guy shows up. Okay? Can't help it. Anyway, it's psychology. All this stuff is psychology, right? So let's make our switch over to handgun defense, right? The psychology of gun defense is what the title was supposed to be, right? So psychology. Okay. In firearm defense, this is easy. This is not up for debate unless you've actually faced a gun. Okay. And before you ask, have you? Yeah. my own when I was trying to arrest someone, and they pulled it from my holster and we wrestled for it, and they shoved it against my head and pulled the trigger, and my flinch response caused that 45 caliber bullet, for those of you who know anything about those kind of things, right, to miss my head by about a finger's width. So when I tell people that don't worry about powder burns, you're not going to recognize it and you won't feel them for a day and a half or so, right? Don't worry about the slide catching things or the working mechanism, pinching skin or whatever, because you know what? You're not going to feel it for a day or so. You need the adrenal response to go away, right? When I tell people about these different things, it's because I have damn experience in them and I'm not just regurgitating somebody else's vomit. Okay? All right. So that being said, gun defense. At best, okay? If you can't see, can you see that? Hopefully you can see that, right? Let me bring my camera a little closer. Earthquake, all right? So bring it in here a little bit closer, right? Gun defense is 90% psychology, 10% technique, right? So if you're not a thinker, if you're problem-oriented, if all you focus on is technique, good luck. Good luck, okay? And this isn't just about, again, it's not just about how I'm thinking and where my head is, but understanding how to control his psychology, how to control his head, because I'm going to need to create what I've talked about in the past, perceptual gaps so that I can operate, right? So let's talk about some of the psychology, right? Let's talk about some of the things that we absolutely have to cover if we're really going to be training this way. Because again, 95% of the people that are training in this and any other martial art only give a shit about the moves, right? Because they want to feel good about themselves. They want to stroke their own ego. They want to impress other people, which again strokes their own ego, all that kind of stuff, right? And there's a shit ton of stuff that's wrong, like across the board in gun defense, okay? Way worse techniques in gun defense than there are in knife defense. Not that that doesn't have its own problems, okay? But here's a psychology thing, right? I think the reason that there's so much bullshit in gun defense is most people have never been shot, let alone shot at. But most people have been cut at least once. Maybe not by a bad guy, but at least cut themselves. So they have more respect for one weapon because of personal experience over the other, right? The other requires more theory unless you're training with somebody who has that experience. Okay? And you never want to get more than one generation, more than one layer away from the guy with the experience. You know what? I'll be conservative, right? 2. Okay. That means that the teacher is still alive and the guy who taught your teacher has the direct experience. But you know what? 21st century America, Great Britain, or wherever in the UK, right? Australia, Canada, India, whatever, right? Too much time between wars, too much time between, right? Too much popularity of martial arts. Most people don't have that experience. Okay. Well, I've like fought in a ring and well, great. Okay. So you have like 30% experience. You have experience being in a ring where somebody can step in if shit gets a little too hairy and the rules start getting broken. Oh, wait, rules. No, none of those in an actual violent attack. Son of a, okay. You got something, but be careful what you're measuring. Okay. Be careful what you're measuring. Anyway, psychology. All right. So here's something, right? How about this? Let's talk about something called the startle response. Hopefully I spelled that right. Okay. Startle response, flinch response, whatever you want to call that, right? Flinch. Flinch response, whatever. Okay. So what that means is, and we talk about this heavily when it comes to being unarmed against a weapon. Okay. Now, unarmed, okay, and I'll talk about this when we get to the fork in just a few minutes. Okay. Unarmed against a gun, right? Against a gun, right? That's only one aspect of gun training. Okay. Another one, everybody wants to do this kind of stuff. Okay. Biggest psychology thing that goes on, right, is this idea of false confidence. Okay. What I mean by false confidence when it comes to gun defense and gun training is I carry one, so I got the advantage. Okay. Do you really? All right. So psychology, let's put advantage down here, right? Okay. Why do criminals brandish a weapon during the commission of a crime? Right? I know we're not interacting, right? But they do it because it gives them advantage. Okay, it gives them a serious advantage. So why would potential defenders or potential targets of those people or whatever, why should they carry weapons? To neutralize that advantage, right? It's way easier to brandish a weapon of your own, like bringing a gun to a knife fight, bringing a baseball bat to a knife fight, because now I've got range in my favor as opposed to short, right? Okay. I can neutralize this, right? If I'm unarmed against this advantage, my skill set better be a whole lot better than most of the knuckleheads I see teaching crap online, making shit up, okay? So what ends up happening is there's this false sense of confidence that gets put in there, right? So, I got one, right? So somebody does something to me, I shoot him in the face, right? Really, okay? Here's a question I toss out of people at seminars, workshops, classes. You may hear it again if you're in for the Friday virtual class this week, and that's what we're covering, unarmed against handguns, right? So what if, right, I turn around, I don't care if I walked into a place, whatever, right? There's a big commotion and whatever, right? And I'm carrying, okay? And this guy's already has his gun out. It's already out. He's pointing it at me, right? Okay. What good is that? None. I now, in this moment, have to operate like I'm not carrying a firearm at all because it's going to take me more time to do all of this than it is for him to do that. That's up here as well, okay? So we have to be careful that we're not just making certain assumptions, right? So false sense of confidence. That's the same for most people with anything, right? I learned some martial arts techniques. I got this color around my waist, whatever, right? So I've got the advantage. Maybe, right? Hopefully, but maybe, right? So here's this startle flinch response thing, right? I know we've all seen like Chuck Norris movies because he's the invincible guy according to the internet, right? We've all seen these movies and stuff where bad guy has this gun out and all of a sudden the defender, right, goes into their moves, right, and takes care of business, okay? But if you notice that just before they go into their whatever their moves are, right, before he does his thing, right, even Chuck Norris, right, they get either a steely glazed look or steel gaze, or they get this, whatever, right? That's called a tell, okay? I'm here to tell you, most bad guys will just pull the trigger. It's just easier, okay? So we have to be careful because what we do in the moment that we act has to do one of two things. But either way, they have to take into consideration the flinch response, okay? I either need to neutralize the flinch response. That means the message that his brain will send to those muscle sets in the moment that he flinches, okay? Or I need to not be in front of that round hole lined up with that tube, because that's not the same, right? I need to not be in front of that when he flinches and that little piece of metal gets pulled and another piece of metal comes flying out at somewhere between 200 and 500 feet per second. Okay. So 357 Magnum travels at, give or take, about 300 feet per second. Block that, right? So, but there's this flinch response, right? So right? But now we're talking about psychology, right? Now we're talking about how do I know when, right? Part of my experience, for some of you that know, some of you that don't know, right? I'm an ex-federal police officer, and part of my training regimen was in hostage negotiation, and I did that on two sides. One, as the negotiator, and on the other side as a sniper. Okay, so sniper, Just got to be able to hit my mark, adjust for windage, all that kind of stuff, right? That's just being this unseen person that when I get the command or the instruction to take the shot, I take the shot, right? Disconnects. If I hit my target correctly, it shuts everything down. So even if this person has, a gun up against somebody or whatever, right? Not exactly guaranteed, right? So the negotiator, everybody thinks that like when negotiations are over, right? Negotiator's job is done because now it's the sniper's job, except that's not true, okay? The last job that a negotiator has when the order is given is to get the attacker's mind off of the action of pulling the trigger. So if they've got a gun on a hostage, that kind of thing, right? And again, people that argue against this, like you don't take the shot because like the guy will just like flinch and pull the trigger. That's true. If that's the last thought that his brain has going on, or I shoot something that causes that autonomic response. Okay? So if the sniper's trained and knows his job, the negotiator needs to be trained to know his job or her job. And that job is just before the shot is taken, the negotiator asks a question of the attack of the assailant that requires more than a yes or no answer. I need to get his brain to shift to left brain processing, right? I don't say, do you really want to do this? Yes. No, that's easy, right? That's right. What would your mother think of you in this moment right now? We take the shot. Okay. It's very different. Psychology, right? We need to understand how this whole process works. And somebody that just knows moves doesn't know squat about that stuff, right? They may be intuitive about it, but that's luck, right? So anyway, right? So psychology, it's a whole bunch of things about this, and I don't have time during this little training to go into it. We just need to know that gun defense is 90% psychology, 10% technique, right? So instead of just listing a whole bunch of things, right? Some of these will come back to those 4 that I've listed, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline 4 pillars of training that we use to make sure that people are absolutely prepared for as many different situations as they could be in, okay? And the reason why I call them pillars, right, is if you know what a gazebo is or a pagoda or a tent type awning, like a circus tent, whatever, right? Okay. The Parthenon in Greece, that kind of thing, right? What you have are a bunch of pillars, right? Poles, columns, whatever, right? Holding up this big roof or whatever. Okay. I know, crappy drawing, right? Anyway, let's get rid of that, right? So, but holding up, right, this bigger thing, okay? It's a big roof, right? If you don't know what the Parthenon is, you can always Google it. So I tell my teenagers, okay? What is that? Help me out with it. Look it up. This way, okay? So anyway, you see these pillars, right? Columns, right? If you look up the Parthenon, you're going to see a butt ton of these things, right? Butt ton is an official term for a shitload. I mean, there's a lot, right? Or you could just have, you could have a pagoda or a gazebo or whatever. There could be 4, there could be 6, whatever. I'm using 4, right? So remember this, all right? So if we look from the top down instead of my crude drawing right here, right? What we're looking at is end on, right? From the roof down through these columns, looking at the end, all right? So this, right? This skill level, skill proficiency, all your techniques, right? They're going to kick me off these platforms one of these days because I wanted to say all your shit. But anyway, right? It's all the stuff you think you know, okay? In our martial art, we tend to use the term kihon, right? Kihon gata, kihon no kihon, right? Fundamentals of the fundamentals, right? So the pillars are the fundamentals. They're not just the critical pieces, they're the areas of training, right? That comprise being able to defend myself with and against firearms. Okay. So again, today we're talking about handguns, right? But the roof would be up on top of this kind of thing, right? Holding it up, right? So here's the thing, right? Covering all four corners got lots of stability, right? 4 areas of training. I'll tell you what they are in a minute. 4 areas of training. I'm going to handle situations that could come in from any direction, right? Well, what if I'm missing one? I can still be okay, right? I can still be okay. As long as the wind doesn't blow in the wrong direction, right? Or something compromise things in this direction. And then I realize, shit, I need something I don't have. And everything comes crashing down, right? What happens if I'm missing more than one? What if I'm, you understand? Okay. So let's go back to this. Okay. Now, again, those of you who have been around for a while, you know that every Friday we do this virtual training through Zoom. Other people come in for it. So it's live in the dojo, but people can hop on and get this extra thing. Like a couple of my regulars, like Jason and Jeff from the West Coast and all these guys, right? So we're going to do another one this time, and we're only going to focus on one of these, right? I'll probably be throwing things out about a couple of them, but technique-wise, we're only going to be doing one, right? Because it's only a 60 to 90-minute class, all right? So change color here. Right? Okay, so these are in no particular order, but they all need to be there because they comprise, all of these comprise your ability to handle situations in different ways, okay? So the first one, this is the only one that I'm going to be really clear on. Like this should be first and primary, but not only, okay? So this one is familiarization. Okay? Weapon familiarization. Okay? I need to know how guns work. Okay? I don't care if you like them. I'm having a t-shirt made for the dojo. Okay? I'll let you know when it's ready. Maybe you want to get one. It's going to simply say, nobody ever said you had to like it. People pick and choose their training based on their preferences, not what they actually need in the world. Okay? So weapon familiarization. This has nothing to do with you liking guns, being a gun nut, gun fanatic, pro Second Amendment, nothing. Okay? Requires that you understand how they work and how different manufacturers have things, right? There's a general standard for where things like safeties and all that kind of stuff are, but, right, there are different sizes, different things like that, right? As a for instance, right, on automatic pistols, semi-automatic, they're semi-automatic, right? Hey, when people talk about outlawing automatic weapons for civilians, no shit. They've been outlawed for what, since the 30s, right? So get your descriptions right, right? So, okay, I know, crude drawing, okay? That's where your trigger housing goes, that kind of thing, right? Okay. So there's things on a handgun that are known as index points. We call them index points. Some people call them by other things, but index points. And what that means is these are points where flesh needs to meet metal to help neutralize recoil, what most people call kick, right? Of which most people only think of one. Whoops. That, okay? In a combat situation, I need to be able to neutralize 3 types of recoil to keep the muzzle on that target. Because every time it moves away from that target, I need to bring it back. And if there's shit flying in my direction, now if I'm a good old boy and I'm at the range or in my backyard or on my 40 acres or whatever, right? And I got beer bottles set up, right? And I'm just plinking away, who gives a shit? Okay? But if I got stuff flying at me, right? Here's a psychology thing for you. You can't miss often enough to win. So if you're choosing a weapon because it carries more rounds, but your ability to engage a target with those rounds sucks, you die. Okay? So there are these index points, right? So a revolver has 1 less, sometimes 2 less than a pistol does, right? So there's one right here where my hand, do I have one? Hold on. So we have these ones that I brought back from Japan because I can buy them at toy stores over there. And the reason I bring them back like this is because they have magazines that drop and they have slides that move, right? So we can actually train properly, right? So index point, right? Let me move this so it's in front of the white. There we go, right? So you can see this index point, right? That's for my hand to go up against. No daylight should show through this, okay? There's another one right here. There we go, okay? There's another one right here. That's where the base of this finger goes, here, okay? This way. And then, so this handgun is too big for my hand. Now, can I use something like this if I disarm somebody and then I turn it around on them? Sure, right? I probably won't. One, because I'm carrying, and two, a lot of bad guys steal guns, but they don't steal ammunition. So I don't know if this thing is actually loaded when I take it away from them, and I don't know whether or not it works. So if I disarm a weapon from somebody, right, I will hold it and still draw my own and still use my own because I know this is loaded, it works, and how to use it, okay? But either way, right, this doesn't fit my hand. You see that? There's daylight right there, this index point, right? On this weapon and on a lot of weapons, the index point is on the grip. It's built, it's molded right into the frame. Okay, you can see that right there. Okay, on other ones, it's actually connected to the bottom of the magazine. Let me move over here to the bottom of the magazine, so it'll be there. Okay, but either way, that's for here. Okay, because kick is what we call rotational recoil. Right, the weapon will move around a central axis. There's vectoral recoil. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction, so it moves this way, right? And then there's spiral recoil, which is the way the weapon will twist opposite the rifling that's in the barrel that puts those grooves on a bullet when it's shoved through that pipe, okay? So some weapons, it'll rotate in one direction, others will rotate in another. It doesn't matter to me which one it rotates. What I need to understand, and to make sure it's a part of my training, is that I understand that my grip and my posture, their entire job, other than to keep that muzzle pointing where it's supposed to be, is to neutralize all three types of recoil at the same time. Okay? On a pistol, it's very, very difficult to get as much meat to frame as you can get. Right? So that's why people, when they're plinking with a revolver as opposed to a pistol with a smaller grip, right? Every once in a while, they've got to readjust it in their hand because it keeps slipping through and they need to reposition, right? So there's certain postures that work better, right? I can add extra index kind of things or whatever to keep it where it needs to be. But anyway, right? So that's what I mean, right? Understanding the weapon. How does the magazine work, right? Where are the safeties? Those kind of things, right? And having a general respect for how the whole thing works, okay? So weapon familiarization, right? How to load it, how to unload it. Again, how to neutralize, understanding recoil, the nature of recoil, that it's not just kick, right? That there's these other things that are going on, and how that allows me to keep the muzzle on target. Understanding that a disadvantage to having a firearm, I don't care if it's a handgun or a rifle or whatever, one of the disadvantages is limited ammunition. I don't care how many rounds go in the magazine. You have limited ammunition. A knife has no limit like that. A knife will work until that blade breaks and you lose control of it, okay? A firearm will run out of ammunition. That's a disadvantage, right? Understanding a weapon is not just understanding its advantages, but also understanding its disadvantages, right? Our Grandmaster, Hatsumi Sensei, has always said, you have not truly mastered a weapon just because you learned how to use it. You haven't mastered it until you've learned how to defend against it, right? So, weapon familiarization, right? Number 2, shooting skills. Okay, shooting skills, right? Now, shooting skills involve way more than just sight picture and pulling the trigger and breath control and all that other stuff, right? It also involves one of the least practiced skills that most people have, People can go to the range and put rounds exactly where they need to go and be a great shot and all that, right? But there are two skill sets that most people don't practice for squat, right? They're the least practiced skills in this realm, okay? Now, once I tell you what these are, go back to all of your other weapons and figure out what the least practiced skills are that most people who are good once the weapon is out can't do, okay? So skill set number one is drawing the weapon. Very few people practice drawing the weapon in a way that gets that muzzle on target as quickly as possible because they just assume you pull it out of the holster and you point it, okay? This is related to sword for those of you who are traditionalists in our training, okay? Your job with a sword is not just to unsheath it and get it out there so it can cut. It's to get the boshi, the working end, right, this part, to them as quickly as possible. The longer it takes for you to get it there, the easier of job he has of killing you, okay? So I need to get the working end to him as quickly as possible because the weapon is also a shield, but I need to get the working end out there. The quicker I can do that, the better off I am, okay? Way too many people are doing these big-ass draws, and I don't care what lineage they learned it from, okay? Remember what I said in the beginning, the farther away you are from the actual experience of combat, the more dumb shit ideas get integrated into the training. Because the people that come up with the dumb shit ideas, that sounds logical, right? But this is our style. Okay, and your style is going to get you killed. Fantastic. I'm okay with that. Just don't bring that bullshit in my direction, right? Shooting skills. So with a gun, it's the same thing. Most people are doing this kind of stuff, right? Or remember the cop movies, right? Okay, that kind of stuff, right? The longer it takes to get that hole pointing at parts on his body, right? So from a sword perspective, right? That's why with the sword, I'm using a short one because it fits in the space I have right now, right? The sword, we don't draw the blade out of the scabbard and then flip it over, right? We draw the scabbard off the blade and use the fingers to lever it. It's very, very different, right? Very different, right? Same thing, right? I integrated this into the training I have for my students, right? So we're not drawing it up out of the holster and then bringing it out here because the whole time the muzzle is not pointing at him, right? My job is to stop him from using his weapon as quickly as possible so he stops throwing that bullshit in my direction, okay? So from right here, when I draw it, first thing I'm going to do is drop, right? See, my hand stayed in the same place in space. I'm dropping the holster off the weapon. And then I'm going to push my elbow down because it gets the muzzle at him as quickly as possible. I get my first round off here and can continue firing all the way out into position. Okay? Bang. And I'm moving out. I learned that from a quick draw artist. Okay? He's fast because you get time for when your first round goes off. Now, you also have to be very, very well-versed and practiced with the safety things so that when I grab this weapon, see where my finger is? It's all the way up here and it doesn't drop onto the trigger until that had to be trained. That had to be trained. Otherwise, I do dumb shit like this and blow a hole in my foot or my leg. Okay? So skill number one that's not practiced very well, okay, that you don't need a partner for. You don't need good weather to go to the range. You don't even have to have enough money to buy the friggin' ammunition. Get it into muscle memory. Second skill, reloading. Combat reloading. Under pressure. Okay? And again, that's a whole other topic, right? So I can't just drop my magazine on the ground. You know what that cost? I don't know. What are you worth? Because what you put in is what's going to come out. What you also neglect to put in because I don't like rolling. I don't like break falls. I don't like that kind of training. Ooh, hope you never need it. And that's what people are doing. They're gambling. If you're a gambler, shit, why bother? Go buy a lottery ticket, load your wallet up with a butt ton of money. Then when the guy comes at you, go, here, man, just take that. Just don't hurt me. Okay? Anyway, right? Shooting skills. There's a whole range of things in here. This, at best, is where most people hang out. Most of them just jump straight to that because it's a gun, dude. What do you need to know? Nothing. Just keep doing it. Right? Anyway, shooting skills. Okay. Number 3. Okay, again, 3 and 4, again, subjective, right? 2, 3, and 4 is subjective. You don't have to learn them in a given order. I'm just putting these things out, right? So number 3 is weapon retention. Okay? I don't mean holding on to it while you're shooting so that the kick doesn't make the gun go flying out of your hand, and I've seen that. It's not pretty, right? But that belongs up here because that's about grip. What I'm talking about is I'm dealing with one guy and his friend or a good Samaritan or whatever comes over to wrestle the gun away from me or to get it off target, and they're trying to take it away from me. Or I pull this thing to keep this guy at bay, and he decides he's not going back to jail or whatever, and then he tries to do a gun disarm to me, right? How do I get that back on target? How do I not lose it, get it back where it needs to be, right? And use good taijutsu to do that, right? So how do I keep that muzzle, right? Because it's all about keeping that little hole at the end of that pipe. Whole pipe has to line up with him, right? If I end up with that shape pointing at him, okay? Same thing with gun defense, right? That, at best, I'm gonna get winged, okay? Here, not good, okay? So weapon retention. How do I hold on to it when this jackwagon or one of his friends from Jackwagon Central is trying to take my gun away from me? Okay? How do you make that happen? Okay? And then number 4 is gun disarms. Not that arm, but disarm, right? Gun disarms, okay? I don't have one. He has one. How do I take it? Okay? How do I defend against that person? Right? Let's go back to that. Let's loop back to that question I asked early on that I tell you I ask my students all the time, right? I've got an advantage, right? I got a gun. Yeah. Okay. But you come around the corner and not only does he have a gun, but he has it out in your face. And it's going to take you all of this time to get it out and do what you need to do. And it's going to take him all of that amount of time. You see my finger? That amount of time to make you go away or not exist anymore. Okay. So here's the reality. And I've had people, I had a student one time come to a training weekend. He was not going to come to Sunday's training because Sunday we were working on retention and disarms. He came to Saturday's training because he already had a lot of this. This guy's really, really good, but he came for the shooting skills because he was hoping I could teach him something extra. But this guy had already trained with Israeli Special Forces and all kinds of people, right? He was really good at this. We upped this a little bit. We got that a little bit better just because of timing and getting the muzzle where it needed to go. But he was already really good at this, right? So midway through Saturday, maybe 3/4 of the way, right? I let people know, if you haven't already signed up for Sunday, here's what we're doing on Sunday, right? And he said, well, I already have this. I don't need this, right? I don't need it, okay? I mean, what are the chances, right? And I used that little pre-frame, or not pre-frame, it's called a reframe in neurolinguistic programming. That little reframe. What are you going to do if you come around the corner, he has his gun out and it's in your face, and you have to do all this, and all he has to do is twitch his finger? Because in that moment, whether you're carrying or not, you have to operate like you're unarmed. If it's not in your hand, in the moment you need it, it's like your hanbo, your knife, whatever. If it's not in your hand when you need it, you're unarmed and have to operate as though that were true. And you have to continue to operate that way until a situation opens up that you have the time to do what you need to do. And sometimes in disarm techniques, that doesn't happen until you get the guy to the ground and you back off, and now you're going to hold it, right? It's very different. That's part of psychology. Right? That's part of the psychology. Each one of these things has psychology going on with it, right? The why. The psychology is the why the skills are the way they are. When they're applied, how they're applied, right? whether or not a given skill set, technique, kata, whatever, is even a good fucking idea in this moment. Psychology. Okay? So whether or not you come in for the spring ninja camp that we do, or jump on it virtually or whatever, hopefully this is giving you enough to think about things, right? So again, 4 pillars, right? And remember, gun defense is 90% psychology, 10% technique. So for everybody that is walking around with chest puffed out and they're proud because like I know all the techniques of like all the scrolls of like the Tagagi Yoshinbu and the Gyoko school, and nobody gives a shit. Okay? None of that matters in the moment that you need something. What matters is your ability to pick the right one for what's going on. Okay? Not your damn favorite. Okay? So in this realm, when we're talking about technique and we're talking about skill sets, each one of these things is a skill set, right? And they're all important because we don't know what the situation is going to be when we turn that corner. We don't know, right? So one of the big benefits of ninjutsu is we give people more options than just one stylized way of doing things, right? We're not just kickers. We're not just grapplers. We're not just ground fighters. We're not just throwers. We're not just locks and holds. We're not, right? Okay? We're not just unarmed, right? Okay? Which is why MMA even got created anyway, because people noticed that there were all these gaps in the arts that they were doing. So what they do? Well, we just run around and arbitrarily grab a bunch of shit and shove it together and go, mixed martial arts. Ninjutsu was one of the freaking original mixed martial arts. Okay? So the 4 pillars, right? If we're missing any one of these things, we better hope to God or whatever it is that you pray to, right? Or avoid praying to, that you're not missing the one you need when you need it. Weapon familiarization, you need to understand how they work. Revolvers, pistols, right? People like to say automatics and stuff. Pistols and stuff. Just did a seminar just before the whole COVID shit happened and all that. I actually had to make a basic one. There, some women came to me because they wanted to learn stuff and everything, which is really great, right? So they come for the training, and all of them they had to bring their own firearm and all that, right? And like 70% didn't bring their own firearm. Their guy, right? Could have been boyfriend, husband, dad, brother, whatever, right? Gave him a gun. Said, here, this is what you need for defense. This is what you need, right? Half of those 70% brought a firearm. Not only that they didn't know how it worked because they weren't even taught where things were, but the weapon, and it wasn't just too big for their hand. They physically could not work the mechanism. And 2 people that came had lots of shooting practice, but they always went to the range with somebody else, and that person okay, there you go, Sally. Okay, go ahead. They had experience with pulling the trigger and sending a round downrange. Nothing else. They were clueless when it came to safety procedures, loading a magazine, reloading, drawing it, where the safeties were, anything, because even at 42 or 38, I think they were both in that age range, right? Somebody had always done all the stuff that's necessary to get it out and active, right? Now, we can laugh at things like that and we can shake our heads. But you know what? There's a lot of martial arts and self-defense instructors that are jumping over a whole bunch of stuff that has to come before the moment his fist gets thrown that we need to have. They jump right to, he throws punch. Really? What led up to that? How many opportunities did you have to de-escalate things, neutralize things, distract him, whatever, escape from this? Well, don't teach that. I mean, like if I could do that, I would do that. Really? Okay. Fantastic. Keep thinking that. So anyway, 4 pillars, right? If we're missing one, what happens when somebody goes for the gun? Okay. If we're missing one, great shooting skills. His is out my face, and I'm going to try to quick draw somebody that already has it out, and all he has to do is twitch. Okay. So psychology. This is one of those things that you don't mess around with, right? It's 90% psychology, at best 10% technique, right? So if you're interested in taking a look at least the gun disarm kind of things where we're unarmed, or at least have to operate like we're unarmed in a situation where things are out and into place, right? And you want to see what kind of myths you may have fallen prey for. Because the stuff I'm teaching, I am willing to act as an expert witness in a court of law because I know I can demonstrate it 10 out of 10 times, no matter what the situation is. Because my job is to educate the jury so they understand what's really going on, instead of trying to pick which of two different bullshit stories that the lawyers are throwing at each other, right, is going to throw things off. So I'm so sure in my stuff that I'm willing to publicly. So if you're willing to, if you want to take a look at this stuff, there's just a butt ton of freaking myths. Okay. That stuff that either people told you or that have shown up again and again and again in movies, those kind of things that are just wrong. They're wrong. They're not just wrong. They're deadly wrong. Okay. So anyway, if you want to jump on that, you can go to that little URL. It's down there, right? There it is, at Friday Virtual Training, right? Classes are $4.99, $4.99 for a 60 to 90-minute class. You get the recording afterwards. Some people sign up for it knowing that they got to work or whatever because they want the training, right? But anyway, right? So I used to say at the very beginning of this, but I guess I'm actually doing it, right? I'm not doing free webinars anymore for like, an hour or whatever, just giving away a bunch of stuff, right? But I guess I am. It's a whole training. Here it is, right? What are you going to do with it? And, I've been watching the numbers go up and down as people have been signing on and signing off and all that, okay? People sign off because assumptions. They sign off because who's this guy? Oh, look, he's a little fat. He's bald, whatever, right? If that's what makes it not your cup of tea, holy shit, dude, you better find some freaking war-torn guy who's still in his 20s with 8-pack abs and has, life-saving experience, right? So anyway, right? I don't care what it is. I'm only here to help those who want help, right? If that's you, great. Love to have you. If not, no harm, no foul. You got another free video that you can toss onto your hard drive and let it collect cyber dust as well. Okay, I know. It's not you, right? It's none of us because we're all enlightened, right? But my job is to do my best at conveying this stuff so that people get what it is that they need. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like the lessons. That doesn't make it not true. Okay? All right. That's it. For those of you who do like me, fantastic, right? Buy me a beer. Other than that, right, I will see everybody again next Wednesday if I don't see you during the Friday virtual class. That's it. I'll talk to you again soon. Be safe, train hard, or at least, have a good rest of your week. Talk to you soon.